Scripture reading this morning is from Ephesians, the 4th chapter, verses 22 through 31. Ephesians 4:22 through 31. You were taught, with regard to your former way of life, to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. Therefore each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to his neighbor, for we are all members of one body. In your anger do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. He who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work, doing something useful with his own hands, that he may have something to share with those in need. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice.
Good morning. Appreciate the reading there. Mr. Johnson, I gave him some specifics. He says, how about I just go from one to the end? No, that's fine. I don't like to really cherry pick certain verses, but I thought that the ones I selected here on the slide pretty much went better with what I was going to speak about. And I thank you for the prayer, Gerald. Always appreciate the strength and the request that I don't mess up. So, all right. So, I entitled this sermon, "Do a Better Job," and you'll see why that means, why I've selected that. So, first of all, to introduce, I'd like to give you the definition of a word called oxymoron. An oxymoron is a figure of speech by which the phraseology produces incongruous, seemingly contradictory effects such as cruel kindness, or to make haste slowly. And now I just returned from a working vacation, which is definitely an oxymoron. Because when you think about going on vacation, you think about relaxing, going, maybe someplace you haven't been before, relaxing on the beach, if that's your sort of thing. But this was a working vacation because I have a home down in Florida. I bought it 2 years ago, eventually where I'll retire. And fortunately, in the wintertime, my folks, they stay there. But when it's left not habited, things break and needs to be done. So I went down with several planned projects. Let's see, one of them was my riding lawnmower was borrowed by a neighbor, and we brought it back. It was stuck in gear and couldn't get it out, couldn't figure that out. So I had to fix that. My neighbor, who, bless her heart, she means well, but if you ever watch the TV show Bewitched, you got Gladys Kravitz out there that's looking through there, and she always knows everything going on in the neighborhood. Well, she helps a lot, but when she actually, when I told her what I set my thermostat on, she goes, "You don't need to set it that low." I'm like, seriously? You're going to tell me what I want to put my... Anyway, but she means well. So I had a massive sinkhole in the front yard right by, it's really a dirt/sand road that goes down there. It was 13 feet long, 10 feet wide, and 4 foot deep. So I had to figure that out because Gladys was bothering me about that. I purchased some dusted on lights when I was up here off of Amazon or eBay rather, and took them down there because my neighbor said it is dark as pitch over there because it's a house it's abutted up against the woods, and so it is pretty dark. And even though I have ADT monitoring the safety and the security of my home, it is pretty dark. So I had to figure that out. I purchased and wanted to install wireless cameras so I could see what's going on in the house because ADT's cameras are way too expensive. I had to replace an ADT battery on the main main panel because I kept getting a low battery on my app. I wanted to set up Wi-Fi cameras inside so I could see what's going on, especially when Mom and Dad there. I can scare them by talking to them through the camera. And my neighbor also told me I had a broken sprinkler. I've got an irrigation system in there, and so I had a broken sprinkler head. So these are all the planned projects. Now, I do IT work during the day, so I will work during the day on this, and then I usually get off about 5 o'clock, and then I start on my projects, and then Saturday, and then after worship on Sunday. Now, I had some unexpected projects or unplanned projects that I had to deal with. When I first arrived, I drove down Sunday the 26th and got there about 6:30, and I always turn the thermostat up pretty high, but you got to keep it on because it'll get muggy and you'll have mildew and all that stuff. So I went in and it was pretty warm. It was 84 degrees inside. So I went over to turn the thermostat down, and it was already down. So my AC wasn't working. And this is Florida. It's pretty doggone hot. So I had to deal with that. And I had to run to Dollar General to get some fans. And I had one fan pointed right at me on my face, and then one at my torso area. And I'm laying there, and all the windows open, and I'm like, okay, just let me get through the night, because I called the guy, real nice guy from Poland, and he said he'd have somebody there first thing in the morning. He did. And so we had to work on that. But the ice maker wasn't working. I've dealt with this before, twice before, and they got it working, but it wasn't working, so I had to try to work on that. I have Roku TV, and the remote would work. So that was another project that I wasn't planning on doing. The washing machine wouldn't spin out and rinse. So I tried to do some washing there, and it left the soapy suds in there, and that wasn't working. And then later, when I tried to unscrew the hot hose from the back of the washing machine, it just popped out and was a pain. So then I had some other setbacks and issues. So the dusk to dawn lights that I purchased, they wouldn't work. I mounted one on the front of the house by the front door and one on the back. And it's supposed to be coming on at dusk and go off and dawn. Well, they wouldn't work, and so that was a frustrating matter. The internal cameras I couldn't connect to my Wi-Fi router, so that was a problem. When I was working on to fill the sinkhole, the guy that was going to bring sand and dirt, he said it was going to cost $470. Well, I got into Facebook Messenger, and somebody had some broken up concrete that they had jackhammered back their house, and it was free. So, okay. So I've got this poor truck out here, a small truck. It's not one of these big heavy duty jobs, and that poor thing was like, leaning down. It was like, please get it. And so in part of my loading of the first load, I smashed my finger, and the next day I had to go to urgent care, and they had to evacuate the pressure, so that was a pain. So, and then I ended up finding some dirt topsoil at Walmart. So for about $70 as opposed to $470, I was able to fill that sinkhole. Let's see here. My phone, I have a work phone, and it's Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Anthem, and they have this feature on there. They call it a feature. I call it a pain. That if you enter your password wrong 3 times, it wipes it. And so I had it in my pocket when I was unloading the second load of broken up concrete. And when I pulled it out, it was the hola, the hello sign, and so I knew it was reset. So when I tried to reset it, it was doing the facial recognition, and it was a negative. I don't know if you remember, you're old enough to remember pictures, and you get the negatives in there like that. You hold up to the light. It was a negative, so I couldn't figure that out, so I had to reset it again. I was trimming the hedges, and I had a hedge trimmer with an little extension cord, and I was losing daylight, and I was in my haste, and I cut the extension cord in half with the you done that? Yeah. And so I had to splice that back together. I didn't have my soldering iron down there, so I'm going to do it correctly up here. Here's a good one. I was getting ready to the previous owner had 5 different security lights around there that quit working. And so I was going to, cameras, the Wi-Fi cameras I got, requires an actual plug-in from an outlet, okay? So I decided that I was going to just transform those and put outside outlets in there so I could just plug it in there. Well, one of the cameras, one of the corners, it had 3 wires coming in. So I had to get on YouTube and figure out how to take 3 wires and put it into an outlet that only requires 1 wire. So I figured that one out. So I needed these wire nuts that were really big. Okay. Well, I only had 1. I needed 3 for neutral, return, hot, and ground. So I was getting ready to go to Ace Hardware, which is right down the road, and so got the dogs in the truck and backed out. And oh, by the way, when I was going down, I forgot my house key and my garage door opener. So thankful to Gladys, she had a house key that I gave her, and I was able to get. But then I had to use the keypad to shut the door. So I was getting ready to look around for my glasses, my sunglasses, and couldn't find them. So I go out in the house, truck's still running, and shut the door because CJ always wants to come out. Went in and got my sunglasses, came out, and the door's locked. The truck's running, the dogs are in there, and the door's locked. So I'm thinking, well, should I smash a window? I don't know. So I texted my buddy, who's a lieutenant in the police force down there, and make a long story short there, which is too late by now. Neither the police nor the sheriff's department nor the fire department have any Slim Jims. So had to call, he recommended a particular fellow that's owns a tow company. And he came down there, and literally 45 seconds he was in. Well, thankfully, the dogs weren't in any kind of danger because the AC was on full blast. But when I finally got in there, my low fuel light is on, and I'm like, am I going to even get down to the road? So I go to Ace and get my wire nuts and come back, and lo and behold, when I get to the top of the ladder, there's 2 wire nuts right there that I didn't even need to go to Ace Hardware. So, yeah, this has been a really fun trip. I sliced my finger on a broken bulb. Didn't see it on the backside and sliced it. That's not too bad. To see CJ, my golden, he knocked over the bedside table in the middle of the night, breaking a water glass and the light bulb. And then the next night, I put the water glass in the master bathroom to get a drink, and I set it on an angle, and it fell off into the sink and broke that. So this has been a really fun trip. Somewhere on that, I totally lost it. My head, the top of my head just blew off. I totally lost it. And I was beginning wondering, was God punishing me? What's wrong? Why am I having all these many setbacks? And I am ashamed to say that I did lash out at God. So this is my confession, as well as hopefully a lesson that I needed, but hopefully somebody else needs. And I got to thinking, are these really problems? Sure, it's like there's a book, there's actually 2 books written, one about the invasion of Afghanistan by the Russians from their perspective and from the Afghans' perspective. And the Afghans said that they were able to beat the Russians in 10 years by death from a thousand knives, which means, you cut here, that's not a big deal, cut here, not a big deal. Pretty soon you got so many you bleed to death. And that's what I was thinking would happen to my trip down there. But then I also realized our sister, Linda Rainey, just recently passed away untimely. She's 57. I'm 57. So were these problems that I was encountering really all that bad? In perspective, Deanna recently recovered from a serious bout with COVID, and we could have very nearly lost her, and she's here right now. Hi, Deanna. Thank you for that. And then my own sister-in-law, Jeanette, she recently had to be admitted to the hospital for terrible abdominal pains, and they found a mass in there, and they removed it. And then while I was down there, she was actually released from the hospital and was actually go down to Sebring to to visit there. But she became known as a woman of great faith in the hospital, because whether it was other patients, nurses, doctors, she would talk to them about Jesus. Now here she is laying in the hospital, just had major surgery, still didn't know at that time if it was cancer, which we found out that it is. And here she is talking to people about Jesus. And then my own Jeannie reminded me of the story of Job. And I was truly ashamed that I let all these little bitty things get to me. Because I went down there with great aspirations of getting all this stuff done. I get down there maybe once a quarter, and it's tough when you have all these ideas to get to do and they go wrong. So I decided to rename this sermon to Do a Better Job. And so all that lead in was we're going to talk about Job this morning. Now, I definitely needed this because it's shameful to think that I had lost it. I just totally lost all of my self-being, of how I should react, should be as a Christian. But the Bible tells us in the first 5 verses of Job, chapter 1, that this is God describing him. He was blameless, upright, fearing God, turning away from evil. Wouldn't that be awesome if we could have God describe us in that way? And I certainly was not an individual that could be described in that way. And Job had real problems, yet did not waver. We learn, and we won't read through all this, but in Job, the first 2 chapters, tell us about all the different things that's going on. Of course, we know the story that Satan and the sons of God, which they think that means the angels, had come before God, and God asked him, he says, "What have you been doing?" He says, "I've been going up and down the world and looking around." And he says, "Have you considered my servant Job?" And so then they get into a conversation between Satan and God. And he says he's blameless, he's upright and like this. And Satan says, "Well, do you think he does this, for no benefit?" He says, "You built a hedge around him, which means you protected him. You've made him profit. He had all these animals and possessions and riches and all that. He's got his quiver's full with all his children." And he says that's the reason why. And so God says, okay, you can go test it, but don't lay a finger on him. And so we know he lost his livestock, he lost his family. Every one of his kids were killed all at one time. And Job didn't waver. Now he did get upset at the situation, but he didn't waver. And I like this verse that he told his wife. This is when she told him, "Why don't you just curse God and die?" And Job said, "Shall we accept good from God but not accept adversity?" And that made me think even more. So I actually had a different sermon I was going to do today, but I thought this was more apropos, that this is what I've been going through. I was going through adversity. Was it really? I mean, nobody died. I smashed a finger, I cut a finger, and locked my dogs in the truck, but everything was okay. And Job did, in the 3rd chapter, he did curse his own birth. He's like, curse the day that I was born, why didn't I die since I was born, type of thing. But he didn't curse God. And he had a whole lot more things going on bad than I did. And so then I get even more feeling ashamed as I continue to read. Now, Job did feel that God was oppressing him in chapter 10, and he was kind of wondering why that would be. He says, "I'm your own creation. Why are you oppressing me?" type of thing, and so many words. And then you have the back and forth of Job and his 3 friends, which is basically, you're a sinner, no I'm not, yes you are, no I'm not. And that goes on for 34 chapters. And even Job says you guys are really bad friends, and even God says they're bad friends. But Job in chapter 14, verse 1, he said, a man's life is short-lived and full of turmoil. And boy, did I think that was going on when I was in the middle of all these problems. I don't know if you know the story, but if anything could go wrong, would go wrong, and that's pretty much how I was feeling. And then comes the scary part. God rebukes Job for his lack of faith in God's own power and knowledge. And that happens in Job 38 through 41. And it reminded me, I'm a big fan of movies, and one of my favorite movies from all time, in fact, one of them that prompted me to go in the military, was An Officer and a Gentleman. And the drill sergeant there says, "Put your toes on the edge of the line, you slimy worms." And that's how I picture in Job 38 to 41 that God was telling Job, and he was saying, were you there when I created everything? Hung the world on nothing. And so Job became very humble and realized that he had failed and repented. And I became very humble and repented for lashing out that these simple little things, wasn't that much, but it seemed like a lot at the time. And then at the very end of the book of Job, God restores Job to what he had even more than he had before. Now, I always thought, for possessions, that's good, but how can you replace? I can't replace Samantha. But he did bless Job that he gave him so much more. So I thought the lessons learned for me anyway on this was, what's the difference? There's a difference between problems and minor inconveniences, and I think that's one thing that we think of a lot. We should really think of daily in our lives. That what we think is a problem really is a minor inconvenience. And I said before in a different sermon that when I was in Afghanistan, I saw a guy that his feet were literally backwards, pointing behind him, and he was on crutches. I think that would be a problem. Okay, me cutting my finger, smashing my finger is a minor inconvenience. So I think we really need to keep things in perspective. I know I do, and it would help us, our mindset, it gives us peace. I don't know who said it once, but and I'll probably paraphrase this improperly, but it says life is 2% of what happens, 98% of how we react to them. And that certainly should have been true for me. It was 2%, and it's just like problem after problem. No matter what I tried, I felt like I was King Midas in reverse. Everything I touched, turned to copper or something. Praise God all the time, not just when everything is hunky-dory. Got a chance, as I mentioned, a week ago Friday, took the day off from work and went down to see my brother and sister-in-law. And so they found out that Jeanette has cancer, and they've met with the oncologist and all this. And he's actually going to take her to get a second opinion at Cancer Treatment Centers of America, I think at Tampa. And so my brother said something while I was there, and it was just phenomenal. He said, everybody, of course, unless the world, Jesus comes back, everybody's going to die. It's just we don't know when or how. And they and David said, how can we praise God only when things happen the way we think they should turn out? And so they resigned themselves to that. This may take her. And they're still praising God. And here I was, worrying about a washing machine, an ice maker. And boy, did I feel foolish. And so this was, I think, God's way of saying, hey, knucklehead, you need to refocus. And actually, I didn't even plan this with Gene and all, but He's saying 361. This world is not my home. I'm just passing through. And that's another lesson that we need to learn is, as Job says, your life is short-lived and full of turmoil. And we need to keep that perspective. And as Jeannie likes to say, use this phrase, but if this world was all that in a bag of chips, we wouldn't want to desire anything else. Okay? I truly think that we have certain adversities happen to us so that we remember that, hey, it's no big deal. It's just a thing. It's it's just a washing machine. It's just a light bulb that cut me or something like that. So to give you some finality here, outcome on my projects, AC was fixed in the first day. It only cost me $60. Had one joker from a different place that gave me an estimate of $1,400, and they came the first time and only charged me $140, which is less than 10%. And then he just fixed it, blew some stuff out, and let the electricity come to the condenser. Okay. The ADT battery was replaced. It was working. I bought a bag of ice, and they made me use ice trays because I didn't fool with that. The sinkhole's been filled for less than $70, so that was pretty cool. That guy was going to charge me $470. I said that. Dust to Dawn lights will be returned for a refund, and I didn't even know this. You don't knew this existed, but you can actually get Dust to Dawn bulbs, screw them into a regular thing, and they come on at dusk. And wasn't that amazing? Wasn't that amazing? So I was able to fix that, and I told Pat, my neighbor, I said, now you could land an airplane in my yard with so much brightness there, so I don't want to hear any more about being dark as pitch. My Roku remote was replaced, so you can see things were starting to fix after I had this epiphany of what a jerk I was. Washing machine was replaced and installed. I just decided to cap off the sprinkler head rather than having it fixed. That cost $2. The extension cord was spliced back together, so I was able to use that and finish my hedges. I canceled one Amazon order and returned another order, or will return another order when I get up here. Wireless cameras are installed and work perfectly. I can see everything going around in my house on my phone or my laptop. My mower was fixed by my neighbor's dad for $100, so that kept me from having to tow it somewhere. And I also wanted to remember that Romans 8:28 says we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And so it was amazing to me how, when I repented of being angry with God, that things started working well. And even the AC and all that. So to wrap this all up, this is really a sermon for me. We, especially I, need to be more like Job. Job had real problems, and he didn't curse God. He did get a little questioning of God, and God put his toes on the line. Life is 2% of what happens to us and 98% of how we react. Do we really want to risk eternal torment because of minor inconveniences or even genuine problems like my sister-in-law? She's got a genuine problem. It may take her life, but she has decided that she's going to praise God whether it turns out her way or the way God says it should turn out. He, God, will not allow us to be tempted beyond what you're able. 1 Corinthians 10 tells us that. And you got to remember that Satan wishes to devour us. In 1 Peter 5:8 says that Satan roams around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Our faith grows with each successful encounter with Satan. And I did have an encounter, and though I failed at the time, I grew from that and saw how I failed miserably originally. But it's when we realize that, we pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and get back on the path is when we defeat him. And we can lead others to Christ by them seeing how we react or fail to react to problems. I'm glad I don't think anybody witnessed my head exploding down there, but that certainly would not have been a good way to lead others to Christ by them seeing that reaction. So this has not been a sermon that is designed to lead others to Jesus, but there's always the need. Jesus is always there and wanting us to come to him. If you haven't, please do it. You don't know tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen this afternoon. And if you have, I'm a Christian, but you haven't, lived faithfully, and you need to, take this opportunity now to make it right. I mean, I failed miserably. You all didn't know that I failed miserably, but I wanted you to know. We're just humans. We make mistakes. But I ask for God's forgiveness, and I hope you all don't look unkindly on me because I had so many problems and I failed. But whatever your need is, I would ask you to please make it known. Together we stand and sing.